What's up, guys? Welcome back to the LOM podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my main channel, Jay Lyons. It will be linked in the description. So thank you if you do that. And if not, enjoy this episode. Peace. Hey, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. How's it going? This is episode... Fucking Jesus Christ. Well, that's not the episode. It's episode 63, I think. And I gotta say, mad props to us. I mean, most podcasts don't even make it this far. Universal Podcast, fucking RIP, man. Which I don't know if I ever said, but that was the title of my podcast I did with my two friends back in the day. Actually, Luke was actually on that. Was actually part of that. He was one of my friends. It was him and David. We did the podcast. I don't know if I ever said that, but yeah, that was the name of our podcast that we did years ago. Universal Podcast. I don't know if I ever told you that. I forgot to talk about it with Luke when he was here, but there you go. That wasn't Luke's first rodeo in the world of podcasting. The more you know. But yeah, Universal Podcast, man. So I mean, like we made that name, back in the day when everything was about squad, right? Everyone was calling their friends squad. The squad pulling up, all the memes. Oh, when the squad rolling up, dude. Oh, look at the squad. Squad popping off. Everything was squad. That was like the name of everyone's friend group. It's like, okay, not everyone can be squad. You can have a squad, but not everyone can be squad. Come up with a different name. And so that's exactly what we did. We said, you know what? Fuck squad. We're gonna do something different. And we called ourselves the Crew. So we were the Crew. We did a podcast about Universal, at Universal, and just mash them together. Crew Universal. And I gotta say, I'm still in awe of that name. Just amazed at our creative genius to come up with that. I mean, Crew Universal. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, imagine if we called ourselves Squadiversal. That doesn't work. Crewniversal. I mean, that's just perfect. The stars aligned and we're like, boom. Could have made a fucking franchise out of that name. But we didn't. But maybe one day. Hey, maybe the Crewniversal podcast would come back. I have the original recording. I just gotta find it. I don't know where it is, but my friend sent it to me when we made it. He's like, hey, give it a little listen. And then we just didn't upload it because I was like, yeah, this was bad. But yeah, Universal Podcast. I don't know if I ever said the name. I don't think I did. But anyways, I'm back. I'm back from my trip up north to South Bend. I know, little weird. It's like up north to South Bend. Yeah, it's crazy because South Bend is in Indiana, and it's like one of the most northern towns in all of Indiana. And it's like, yeah, we're South Bend. That doesn't even make any sense. I mean, sure, you're south of Michigan and Canada, but that's pretty much about it. You're like one of the most northern cities in all of America, and you're like, yeah, we're going to choose South Bend. Also, what's the bend? There's no bend. There's no bend in South Bend. I mean, like, you would think, oh, maybe they're in like a little bend in the border. No, the border between Indiana and Michigan in that area is a straight line. There's no bend. It's like, were you guys trying to be the opposite? But I guess South Bend sounds a lot cooler than North Line, North Straight. Yeah, that doesn't sound as good as South Bend. But anyways, yeah, I don't know if I said I was going to South Bend, but I went to South Bend this past weekend. It was Notre Dame's graduation. So I went up there to see my cousin and my sister graduate from Notre Dame. So congrats to them. Actually, I'm pretty sure I did. I'm just remembering now. I'm pretty sure I talked about how they were graduating soon. But yeah, they graduated this past weekend. Mad props to them. Fucking smartasses they are. And yeah, it was great. So I flew up on Friday, and it was an interesting time going up because when I got before I left for the airport, usually they say, oh, make sure you arrive at the airport like 2 hours before your flight and all that stuff. So I think my flight was leaving at like 1:30, something like that. And so, I was like, okay, so I'll just leave my house at 11. It's about a 20 to 30 minute drive to the airport. So I get there around 11:30, and that's 2 hours before my flight. So boom. Because I always try to be there 2 hours before, even though like I get through security in like 15 minutes. Like getting checked in and going through security is like so quick, usually. On flights that I go on, it's usually super quick. And so I'm usually just sitting at the airport for an hour and a half. But hey, I'd rather be there and not be stressed than stressing out getting to the airport like 30 minutes before my flight leaves and being like, holy fuck, am I going to make it? It's a lot easier. Unnecessary stress. I don't need it. Anyways, so I was planning on leaving at 11, and it was coming close to 11. I was like literally about to leave. It was like 10:45, 10:50, something like that. And I was getting my last minute stuff ready for my flight. And I get this text from my airline, and they're like, hey, by the way, your flight has been delayed an hour, right? And I was like, oh shit. Well, that kind of sucks, right? And I was still planning on going around 11-ish, but like I was going to be like, well, I could be a little more laxed, I don't have to leave at exactly 11. I can leave a little bit later. Because my flight wasn't actually taking off until 2:30 at this point. So it's like I would have been there 3 hours beforehand, and I don't need to be there 3 hours beforehand. But then again, what was I going to do at home? I was already completely ready to go. I'm not just going to sit back and relax just for another hour. I'd rather just get going, right? And so I text my family because they were already up there and they were going to pick me up from the airport. And I said, hey, by the way, my flight was delayed an hour, so I'm going to be coming in an hour late. And my father texts me. He's like, okay, but you still have to go to the airport. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how flights work. You kind of have to be at the airport in order to catch your flight. Like no matter if it's late or early or on time, like regardless, you have to go to the airport. And so I was just like, oh, okay, thanks. I didn't know. I'm like, did you really think I didn't know I still had to go to the airport? I was just texting you, giving you information, letting you know, hey, don't be at the airport at like, I think it's like a 2-hour flight, So I'm like, hey, don't be at the airport at like at 4 or something like that. Be there at 5 because I'm coming in an hour late. That was literally the whole reason why I texted them, was just to let them know I'm coming in later, so they know when to plan to pick me up. And he's just like, yeah, you still have to go to the airport. I'm like, I know. But I was like, whatever. I'll just go. So finished up getting ready to leave, and I left. And I get to the airport, and sure enough, went through security in like 15 minutes. And I was just chilling, and I get another text after I go through security. And they're like, oh, by the way, your flight was delayed another hour. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So now it's leaving at like 3:30. I'm like, fuck you, man. Another hour? And also, I'm like, what is going on? Because in Florida, it was beautiful weather, clear skies. I mean, a little bit of breeze, but not like tremendous wind. Okay, it's not like hurricane force winds. It was like a nice ocean breeze, nice to keep you cool and all that stuff. And like I said, clear skies, beautiful day. I'm like, so it's not an issue with Florida. It's not like the plane is having a hard time getting into Florida. It has to be having a hard time leaving wherever it is, or my plane is just broken. Which, if that happened, that would suck, because then I'm not flying because the plane's broken. But anyways, I was just like, whatever. So I went and I got some lunch at the airport because I was like, I'm fucking hungry. And then I think it was like 3 o'clock, right? It was like 3 o'clock, 3:15, something like that. Like it was getting close to when my flight was supposed to leave. And I'm looking at my watch because we're supposed to be boarding soon. And I'm looking out the window and our plane's not there. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I get another text. It's like, oh, your flight's been delayed another 30 minutes. I'm like, God damn it, dude. What is going on with this plane? Of course, they're not telling you anything. They're not saying, oh, by the way, your plane's just a little bit late leaving wherever it is because of weather, right? There's just nothing. They're not telling us anything. They're just saying, by the way, it's delayed. Fuck you. And I'm like, what? But I was like, whatever. I've already been here for like two 2.5 hours, 3 hours, like what's another 30 minutes, right? And my entire flight crew is like at the gate waiting with us, right? Like they're waiting for the plane to arrive so they can switch. So I'm like, oh my God. But I'm just chilling. And then finally the plane arrives. Thank the Lord. I was able to get on and go, because I was super worried. I was like, dude, I sure hope that it's just weather leaving wherever it was, right? And it was just late leaving, because if the plane is broken and like my flight is canceled, that's gonna suck ass, right? Anyways, but that didn't happen. So the plane gets there, and we start the boarding process, and I'm like one of the last groups on, and I had an exit row. I was like row 14. I was like 14D or something like that. And like they call my group. I go on the plane, and I didn't realize this, but there's no row 13 on planes. And I probably should have known that, because like they don't do floor 13 on buildings or cruise ships or something like that. So I should have assumed that, yeah, of course there's no row 13 on planes. There's probably no row 13 on buses either. You know, it's just because it's a superstition of like 13's evil. And so we're getting on the plane, and I'm looking at the numbers of the rows, and because I'm trying to find where my seat is. And I see the 2 exit rows in the middle, which my ticket says I'm in an exit row. And I see that it goes like 10, 11, and 12. 12 is the first exit row. And then I see the next one, and like I said, I didn't realize there was no 13, so I'm assuming the row behind 12 is 13. And I'm like, well, how is 14 an exit row if it's not? You know? And also, that row was completely full on my side that I was seated on. So I'm like, okay, so of course I'm not in that row, because there's people sitting there. But still, like, why does it say I'm in an exit row when I'm not in an exit row? But we walk up, and I notice that there's no 13. And actually, the second exit row was 14. And so I'm like, oh my God, someone's in my seat. And I'm looking at this lady, and she's got the let me speak to the manager haircut, right? She's like Karen mode to the max. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This is gonna be bad, right? Because, you know, you've seen those videos of people freaking out on airplanes. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to sit in my seat, relax, listen to music, and get to my destination. Like, that's all I want. So I'm just trying to be as polite as possible. And I look at the lady, and I said, excuse me, ma'am, I think you're in my seat, right? Completely ignores me, right? But the lady next to her in the middle seat says, she's like, oh, well, this is E. And I said, oh, no, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking to this lady. I'm in seat D. I'm not in E. And the lady in the middle is still like, she's adamant. She's like, well, this is E, and my ticket says E. And I'm like, okay, I'm not talking about E. I'm talking about D. I'm in seat 14D. That's where I'm seated. So I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this lady, right? And so the lady who's in E, her husband is next to her. And so he gets involved. And he's like, well, sir, she's in E, and she's in the right seat. And I look at him, and I was like, and I'm thinking about him, like, what are you guys on? I've said like 10 times, I'm talking about seat D, not E. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm in D. I'm in this aisle seat right here, right? Because I thought maybe they're mixing up E and D, right? Maybe I got a lisp or something like that, you know? Maybe they're hard of hearing. And so I'm like, no, I'm talking about the aisle seat, right? Because obviously you can't mix up middle and aisle seat, right? And they're like, no, but this middle seat is E. And I'm like, what the... Am I like speaking French or something like that? I'm saying I'm in the aisle seat 14D. I'm not talking about the middle seat. I'm not talking about E. I'm not talking to you motherfuckers. I'm trying to talk to this lady. I'm trying to talk to the one person who's ignoring me, okay? I don't care about you guys' seats, okay? I really couldn't care less, right? And so I'm pointing at the graphic that's above the seat that says, like, you know, where each seat is, and it shows where the window is and where the aisle is. And I'm like, it says right up here, D is the aisle. I'm seated in the aisle seat. I'm looking at the husband now, because I'm like trying to explain to him, I don't give a shit about his wife's seat. I don't give a shit, okay? I'm talking about a completely different seat, okay? And the dude is still like, he's like, no, man, she's in the right seat. The middle seat is E, and that's where her ticket says. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to start ignoring you because like we're just talking around in circles. And so I look at the lady and I'm like, ma'am, you're in my seat, right? And finally, the lady in the middle, I guess she finally realizes I'm talking about the seat next to her. And she looks at me, dead ass. She looks at me and says, well, that seat is E too. And I'm like, no, it's not. Okay. There's no two E's in a row. Okay. There's only D, E, and F in each row. Okay. I'm sorry. There's no other E. There's only one E. You're in the E. Okay. That's the only one. And so I said, no, it says up here, it's D. So you're wrong. And finally, the lady who was ignoring me this whole time, she finally looks up and she's like, well, my ticket says I'm in 14D. And I'm like, oh my God. And so like, I'm waiting for a flight attendant to come over because she was working in the back of the plane, like closing bins or something like that. So I'm waiting for her to come up and we can get this sorted out, right? And so finally, the flight attendant comes up and the lady who's in my seat and says, oh, there must be some mix-up because this gentleman says that he's supposed to be in my seat and my ticket says I'm supposed to be seated here. So the flight attendant's like, all right, well, let me see y'all's tickets. So I showed the flight attendant my ticket and she's like, okay, yes, so you got the D. And I'm like, damn straight. I'm like, damn right I got the D. You said it. But anyways, so we confirmed that my seat was, I was 14D, and they look at the lady who was in my seat, and she's like, ma'am, you're in 10D. And she's like, no, it says 14 right here. And the flight attendant says, no. That's the gate number. We were at gate 14. You're in seat 10D. And so the lady who was in my seat, she's like, oh, okay. And then she like moves and I sit down and I'm like, oh, thank God, But now I didn't want to sit next to this couple because I'm like, they're probably pissed at me because they probably think I'm a lunatic, even though they're the lunatics. They probably think I'm insane because they had to tell me like 20 times that the middle seat was E, even though I already knew that. And not only that, I didn't care. I didn't care what seat that was. I wasn't seated there. I couldn't care less. That could have been seat Z for all I give a shit about. I only cared about 14D. That's the only seat I cared about. But anyway, so I'm like, I'm just going to put my headphones in. I'm going to put my shades on, close my eyes, and I'm going to go to sleep. And so, I just relaxed the whole flight. It was a nice flight up there. And so get up to South Bend, get picked up from the airport, all goody gumdrops, all that shit. And I can't even believe I fucking just... I can't believe I just fucking said that. Goody gumdrops? Anyways, oh my God, a little cringe moment for you there. Get to South Bend, and it was just a nice, relaxing evening. I don't even remember what the fuck we did. What did we do on Friday? I don't even know. I feel like we went to a restaurant, but for the life of me, I don't know what it was. Oh yeah, we went to this one restaurant called like the Evil Czech in South Bend. Really nice place. And I got an IPA there called like the Static Chipmunk. And I hate IPAs. Like that was like the 4th or 5th time I've tried a different IPA and I just hate all of them. So I'm like never getting an IPA again. It's like, oh, fuck those. The whole reason why I got the drink was because Static Chipmunk sound fucking funny. And I'm like, you know what? I want to just look at the lady and order a Static Chipmunk. And but yeah, it wasn't good at all. But also like they didn't have any like name brand beers, like they didn't have the classics. There was no Bud, there was no Land Shark, there was no Corona, there was no Stella Artois. They didn't have any Guinness, which is usually my preferred alcoholic beverage. They didn't have any of that. They just had a bunch of random ass shit. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to try something new, which I'm not against trying new things. I mean, I love trying new things, but I wasn't feeling it that night. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. So I tried the Static Chipmunk, wasn't good. So if you ever go to the Evil Czech in South Bend, don't get the Static Chipmunk unless you're really into IPAs. Then maybe you'll really fuck with it. But I wasn't a fan of it. But anyways, then on Saturday, Saturday was pretty good. My allergies started acting up a little bit on Saturday though. It wasn't too bad, but they started acting up a little bit. And I didn't bring any allergy medicine with me up to South Bend because I believe I've said this in a different episode, but I mean, my allergies been kind of tame recently. This year, it's just, I haven't had an issue with allergies. And I thought maybe it was because I usually spend my time indoors now because I'm editing videos and I'm going to class and working and all that stuff and doing a podcast. But when I went filming to do my short film, like to finish my short film last semester, I was like outside for 2 to 3 hours, 2, 3, 4 hours or whatever, recording, and my allergies were perfectly fine. So I don't know, maybe there's just like no pollen this year in Florida. Maybe pollen just took a break this year, which, hey, if that's the case, fucking A, dude. All the way. Let's do this every year. No pollen every year. That'd be great. But yeah, so since my allergies haven't been bothering me this year, I haven't really been thinking about it. I haven't been thinking about allergy medicine. And so when I just went up to South Bend, I just gave no thought to it. But I get up there, and even though we spent most of our time indoors, like we did have like time outside, and we were out there for a long period of time because, we would look at the campus and all that stuff. It started acting up a little bit, and I'm like, God damn it, And so on Saturday, I took allergy medicine, but it wasn't too bad. It was just like a little, acting up just a little bit. So, Saturday came and went, but Sunday my allergies got fucked up. So in the morning, there was commencement for the graduation, and commencement was in the football stadium, which is, completely outside. And commencement was like 2 hours long, and my allergies got fucked up during that thing because we were outside for so long, and there was pollen fucking everywhere. And so like my nose is just running like crazy. I'm like sneezing, and I'm like apologizing to everyone around me. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I know you're trying to hear this speech from, the minister of I don't know, liberal arts or whatever your position is. Okay, I know you're trying to listen to that speech, and I'm like sneezing up a storm, but there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, allergies. Okay, I didn't take my allergy medicine with me, so I'm sorry. And man, it's just like, I couldn't wait to get back inside. I'm like, dude, if I could just get inside for just like a little bit, get my allergies under control, like that would be awesome. And so commencement ended, and we broke off for lunch before the diploma ceremony. And man, even though I was inside for like an hour and a half after commencement, my allergies were still like going crazy. I'm like blowing my nose out. Like I'm blowing my brains out, dude. I blew my nose like 20,000 times during lunch, okay? Because I'm trying to get whatever the fuck is in my nose to get out. Like, I swear, there was like a piece of pollen just stuck in my nostril and just wouldn't leave. And I'm like blowing my nose. I'm like, dude, get out, But no, he's just up there just, throwing snot down. He's like, oh, hey, you just blew that one out? Well, here's a fucking another one, dude. It's like Donkey Kong. Instead of throwing barrels, he's like throwing snot. And he's like, yeah, there's snot for you. Oh, yeah, here's another one for you there. Oh, check this out. Another snot. Oh, big one. Oh, by the way, you got to sneeze in like 3 seconds. Oh, boom. Another big shot of snot. And I'm like, fuck. I hated it, man. I'm like, dude, just get out of my nose. Just let me breathe. Is that too hard to ask? Every time my nose gets stuffed up from allergies, I'm always like, dude, I'm never gonna take breathing for granted again. I'm never gonna do it. I'm gonna thank the Lord every day that I can breathe with 2 nostrils. Like, because that's all I want. I just want to breathe. But anyways, yeah. Then we had to do the diploma ceremony, which that was all inside. So my allergies got a little bit under control while we were there, and it was really nice because the diploma ceremony, like usually when you go to graduation, right, you have the commencement, which is all the speeches and all that stuff at the beginning, valedictorian, they give out some awards and all that stuff. And then you have the diploma part where the graduates walk across the stage and they get their diplomas and all that stuff. And so it was really nice that Notre Dame decided to split up the diploma ceremonies based on department and all that stuff, because they kind of cut down on the amount of time I was out in the stadium, so my allergies wouldn't get even worse than they already were. Also, I guess it kind of makes things a little more personal, right? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see my cousin's diploma ceremony because he was in a different department than my sister. He was in the business department, and my sister was in the engineering department. So obviously, I went to the engineering diploma ceremony to see that, and yeah, it was really nice. Really enjoyed it. I mean, the campus is beautiful. If you ever have a chance to go there, I've probably said this many times, but if you ever have a chance to go there, just go. It's a beautiful campus. Go there for a football game, and go there for like a weekend or whatever, so you can have like a day where you can kind of explore the campus, and then you have the football festivities another day, and then you can just leave after the game. But yeah, I mean, definitely go to see the campus. It's awesome, and football games is always a good experience. So yeah, that was Sunday, and then we went to this really nice restaurant in South Bend called like Tippecanoe Place Restaurant, which was a really fancy restaurant, and I was looking forward to it because it was a really nice restaurant. I'm hyped. I love food, so I'm hyped about trying this food, but I also didn't want to go because my allergies were bad, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to like ruin my experience going to this nice ass restaurant and having to deal with a runny nose. And also I don't want to ruin everyone else's experience where they're trying to eat this really fancy food and they have to hear me gargling snot, Because I mean, that's not appetizing at all. So people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, this steak is so gross now," because all I hear is this fucking dude over here. And so I didn't want to do that. But luckily, my allergies were completely under control for the restaurant, so I was able to enjoy it. I was able to let everyone else enjoy it, and yeah, it was really nice. It was really fancy. Also, I wanted to enjoy it because I don't know when the fuck I'm gonna go back. I mean, I don't go. I mean, it's like I said, it was a really fancy restaurant, and so like it's not a place that I would go to very often, because it's really expensive. But graduations, special times call for special events, occasions, or something, however the saying goes. But yeah, so I'm like, dude, I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy the food, right? Because I don't know when I'm coming back. Luckily, I was able to. And once again, this place did not have name brand beers, right? They had a bunch of like custom made shit. Like, I'm like, hey, can I see the beer menu? And they're like, yeah, here you go. And it's just a bunch of shit that I've never even heard of. And so they had a bunch of IPAs. And of course, I didn't get any of that because I'm like, fuck IPAs, dude. I just had one the other night and it sucked. Fucking Static Chipmunk. Anyways, but they had a beer on there that was like, it said it was like a dark stout beer, which is kind of like what a Guinness is. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll try that because that seems to be a little bit more my speed. And it was called the Darth Malt. And I gotta say, that was good. I had like 3 or 4 of those motherfuckers. And they were like huge glasses. I was like, dude, keep them coming, Get just another round. Because they were so good. I was like, yes, this is what I'm looking for. But still, I would have preferred a Guinness because I love Guinness. But yeah, so I was gonna get a filet mignon, but I had steak like the night before, and so I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll try something different. But I was gonna order it, but then I officially changed my mind when our waiter came around and he's like, hey man, I'm a real foodie, so my recommendation is the rack of lamb, right? And so I was like, hey, I haven't had lamb in a while. I think I only had it one time back in like, I don't know, like 2017, 2016, something like that. So I was like, well, you know what? Let's give it another go. So I got the rack of lamb, and bruh, that dude was right. I mean, that lamb was fucking delicious. Like, I usually get my meat like medium rare, but he said medium is like the best way to cook it. And so I was like, hey man, I'll take your recommendation all day, or all night, I should say, because it's the evening. But yeah, so I got it medium, and that dude was right. I mean, holy shit, that was good. Everyone with like a bunch of people who got the steak, they're like, oh my god, this was so good. And I'm like, no. I bet you $1 million this lamb was 20 times better than your steak. And trust me, I love steak. So, but also I got soup. I got French onion soup. I mean, right when I saw it on the menu, I'm like, dude, I got to get that. I love French onion soup. If that's on the menu, game over. I'm getting that, you know? It's my absolute all-time favorite soup. It's probably the best soup ever. You know, maybe chicken noodle soup is a close second, but that's all it is, a close second. It's not number one. It's never going to be number one. French onion is number one. Like the night before, before we went to the nice restaurant, the night before we went to a restaurant and they had like two options for soup. They had, I can't remember what one of them was, but then they had soup of the day. And so I wasn't really interested in the soup that they had on the menu. So I'm like, okay, I'll ask them what the soup of the day is. And I said, what's the soup of the day? Obviously. And the waitress said, she said, oh, you know, we got French onion soup. And I'm like, say no more. French onion soup, that's what I'm getting. And so I got that soup and oh my God, it was so good, dude. I get French onion soup anytime I can. Like on a cruise, I'm pretty sure they have French onion soup like available every night, and I get it every night because I can't get enough of that. I love French onion soup. Quickest way to my heart, man. Make me French onion soup. That's all you got to do, and I'll be like, all right, you free tomorrow because we're getting married. But yeah, so I got French onion soup, amazing, as usual. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. I've never had a bad French onion soup. Also, I don't know how you fuck that up. I mean, literally, it's just onions in a soup with a piece of bread and some nice Swiss cheese melted on top. I mean, dude, the cheese is, love the cheese, dude. The cheese is like the best part of the whole thing. Okay, the whole soup is good, but the cheese is the best part. I mean, holy fuck, dude! I want French onion soup now. Just talking about it. Just give me French onion soup. Oh my God. They put the soup, every time you get the soup, they put it in like a cauldron. It's not like a bowl. It's like a cauldron. It's just so iconic. It's so iconic, man. Anyways, I gotta stop talking about the soup or else I'm gonna go crazy. I'm just gonna leave and buy some French onion soup and just make it right now. Yeah, so I got the French onion soup. Got the rack of lamb, and then for dessert, I had cheesecake because I haven't had cheesecake in a while. It was pretty good. But yeah, so that was Sunday, real nice time, and then I flew back Monday afternoon, and you know I get to the airport, everything was on time, so that was great. Weather was beautiful, weather was clear, so I was like, awesome, you know, no delays in terms of weather. And the plane got there and we boarded and everything was fine until like when we took off. And I'm not usually one who gets scared flying, right? I'm always chill flying, right? I never, well, I'll take it back. I've thought many times about getting into a plane crash when I'm on a plane, which is probably not the right thing to think about. When I'm on a plane, I always think about, I'm like, damn, what would happen if our plane crashed? Like, what would I do? You know, and they always say like, oh, make sure you leave your stuff on the plane. And it's like, okay, but my backpack is right there. So like, I understand a suitcase. I'm obviously not going to go in the overhead compartment and pull my suitcase out. But I mean, like, if you really think I'm going to leave my bag with my iPad, my AirPods, all my chargers, if you really think I'm going to leave that there, like, you're insane. And plus, it's just a backpack. I still have free hands. It's just a backpack, right? So I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna take it. I'm taking my backpack with me. But yeah, like, but I never get scared about it. You know, I always think like, what would I do? And that's about it. But I'm never scared. Like I'm always fine flying. I love flying actually. But yeah, like this time I got a little terrified, right? And like I said, that doesn't usually happen. So we get on the plane and it seemed just like a normal plane, but it became very apparent that either this plane is really old or it was about to explode into pieces, right? Because right when we took off, like, you know, when a plane takes off, everyone kind of like leans back in their seat a little bit because of the G-force, I guess. And when that happened, like, dude, the chair, all the chairs creaked and squeaked like loud, crazy loud. And I'm like, this is not normal. I've never heard chairs squeak this loud. It was like every single chair on the entire plane all creaked and squeaked at the same time. And the overhead bins are creaking and all that shit. And I'm like, what is going on? I've never had this happen before. And so like, I'm freaking out. I'm like thinking like, dude, this plane is definitely just held together by like, like a few sheets of metal and some gum. Like this plane is literally going to fall apart in the air. Right. And like the plane is taking off and like, I swear I could see like the plane warping and shit. And I'm like, this is not okay. This is absolutely not okay. And it wasn't windy at all in South Bend, but as we're taking off, as we're climbing up, like the plane is drifting almost in the air. And I'm like, this is not normal. Okay. This is like, I've taken off in a plane with a lot of wind and that my plane has never done that. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, dude, there's no wind and this plane is drifting. Okay. Tokyo drift, baby. This shouldn't be happening. Okay. And so I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm looking out the window and I'm like, okay, that's a pretty high. We're pretty high up here. That's a ways away. Like I'm trying to think of like trying to calculate how high can I be to jump out the plane and like survive or something like that, which is probably like 5 feet off the ground. And here I am looking like 1,000 feet in the air. And I'm like, I can make that. I can, if I land in the water, I'll be good. But anyways, yeah. So also like, I'm like reading up on how to open the door. Cause on the way back, I'm in the window seat. Right. And I'm in the exit row as again. And so I'm looking at the door and it has the instructions on how to open the door and all that shit. I'm like studying this shit. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I do this right because, I'm first in line, right? I have to open the door for my fellow brethren in the plane, right? Everyone's counting on me to open the door if we crash. And so I'm studying up. I'm like, okay, I gotta pull the thing and I gotta pull the latch and throw the door out. And then I'm like, okay. And then I got to remember, I got to pull the string to get the slide because, that would suck if I opened the door and said, okay, guys, go, go, go. And then someone just jumps off the wing and breaks their legs. And I'm like, yeah, fuck, I should have given them the slide. That probably would have been nice. So like, I'm reading up on this shit. I'm pulling out like the safety card. I'm like, okay, if a plane crashes, what do I do? And all that shit. Dude, I literally thought, I'm like, this plane is definitely crashing. But honestly, my thought was that it was going to fall apart, in which case the reading up on how to open the door is not going to be my number one issue, right? It's going to be flying through the air with no plane. You know what I mean? And so, but I was like, hey, I got to read up on this because also like I'm sitting next to this older couple who's like 80. I'm like, yeah, there's no way they're going to open the door, right? So I have to be the one to do it, right? I mean, they've said, the flight attendant always says before you take off, because they're like, oh, you have to say yes that you'll, partake in helping open the door and shit like that because you're in the exit row. And everyone says yes, but they also say like the doors weigh 30 to 40 pounds. And I'm like, look, I know you said yes to that question to the flight attendant, but there's no way you guys are doing that. You guys are 80 years old. There's no way you guys are lifting this 40-pound door, chucking it out the window. Okay, so it has to be me. So yeah, I'm reading up on how to do this shit. I'm freaking out. I'm looking out the window, and we just keep going up. I'm like, dude, when are we gonna get to our cruising altitude? Right? I've flown many, many times, right? And usually you just get like just above the clouds, right? And that's usually where your cruising speed is. But like we're way above the clouds, and we're still going up. And I'm like, is this pilot taking us to space? What is going on here? I'm like looking up into the sky, and the sky is getting black, and I'm like, we're definitely leaving atmosphere right now. What is going on? Why are we still going up? And like I said, we just kept going up. Like you would feel the plane every once in a while, like just like jolt up a little bit, and like I swear we were tilted up. And I'm like, this pilot was definitely rejected by NASA, and he was like, well, screw you, I'm going to space one way or another, and guess what? I'm taking all these people with me. I guess he listened to Elon Musk a little bit too much, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna beat Elon Musk to Mars. He's like, hey, this is my little starship for you. I'm carrying all these people with me, and they're gonna love me. Which honestly, hey, that would be pretty cool if we went to space. But I'm just saying, I don't think we would survive. As cool as it would be going to space, I'm pretty sure we would die almost instantaneously. There's a reason why you don't fly planes into space. It's because they're not made for it. But I'm like, this dude is definitely taking us to space. Why do we keep going up? But luckily we made it. I finally like calmed myself down. I was like, you know what? I'm just put your headphones in, think happy thoughts. Everything's gonna be fine. And I was able to relax. But for the first like 30 minutes of that flight, I was freaking the fuck out. I'm like, dude, we're gonna die. We're definitely gonna die. And but no, we landed in Florida safe and sound. No bad weather, which was great. But still, I'm like, fuck that plane, dude. I'm sure we were this close to just falling apart in the sky. I mean, that plane was held together by tape. Had to be. I mean, that plane would not stop squeaking and warping and all this shit. I'm looking out the window and the wings are like flapping like a bird. I'm like, yeah, no, planes don't do that. Okay, birds do that. Planes don't do that. Something is wrong. Like these wings are gonna snap off. You know what I'm saying? But luckily they didn't. But also, I'm right by the window and I'm at the exit row right next to the wing, and like I'm hearing like this banging coming from like outside the window, and I'm looking at the engine. I'm like, don't tell me that engine's about to explode. Like, no. Because also I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, dude, if that engine explodes, is this plain wall gonna protect me, or am I like the first one to be like roasted? Am I gonna fly out the plane? I'm like tightening up my seatbelt. I'm like, dude, fuck this. But luckily, made it back safe and sound, all good. And man, I feel like I travel a lot. I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm like, dude, I swear, like I travel a lot, but almost not at all. Because I travel often, but I never switch it up. I never go to a different place. I was just thinking, like, I've flown up to South Bend like 4 times within like the past 9 months or something like that. And then on top of that, I went to South Florida 2 times in the same time span. So it's like I've traveled 6 times in 6 months, which sounds like a lot of traveling, but it's not when I'm only going to 2 places. It's not like I'm going to Paris one day, London the next, Amsterdam the day after that, Barcelona, Sydney, Australia, Tokyo, and then back to Florida. It's not like I'm doing that. Sounds like a fucking awesome trip, though. That's pretty much all the places I want to visit. All the major cities I want to visit. But anyways, it's not like I'm doing that. I'm just going to South Bend in South Florida. Which South Bend is way the fuck north from South Florida. But they're both south. They're both called south. But yeah, I'm like, dude, I traveled a lot, but not at all. I used to think that I traveled like the average amount. I'm like, yeah, people usually travel this often. Like when I was a kid, I would fly at least once a year. I would fly up to Ohio because part of my family lives up there. And so every year we used to fly up there to visit them. And I used to think, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably on the lower side actually in terms of traveling, because I just go once a year. So probably people are traveling like 2, 3, 4 times a year. But more and more people I talk to, they're like, yeah, dude, I don't travel at all. There's some people who like have still never flown, like people my age now. They're like, yeah, I've never flown on a plane. I'm like, how have you gone this long without flying on a plane? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of insane. With the amount of travel that people do nowadays, how have you still avoided flying on a plane? I mean, I go on a lot of cruises, which is kind of, more than just South Bend and South Florida, but it's not like I go on a cruise all the time. I've been on like, I don't even know, like 11, something like that, 11 cruises. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been west of the Mississippi. Never. I think the furthest west I've ever gone is Tennessee, which is not west at all. But I think I'm going to like Las Vegas this summer though. So that'll be my first time going west of the Mississippi, which is going to be insane. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm going to Las Vegas this summer, but it's not official yet. Like I got to talk to my group of pals that we're going with, my group of buds, my little broskies. I gotta ask them. We gotta make this shit official. But yeah, if we go, that'd be lit. Like I said, first time going west of the Mississippi. Except, I mean, maybe Cozumel is west of the Mississippi. I've been to Cozumel on a cruise. Is that west of the Mississippi? I don't know. Mississippi River? I'm pretty sure it is, but I don't know. I don't really count that. I mean, it's pretty close. It's probably like right on the line or something. I don't know. I'm not good with geography. But yeah, I've never been to Texas. I've never been to New Orleans. God damn, dude. I've never been to LA. I've never been to San Francisco. I would love to go to Alaska, though, like going on an Alaskan cruise. That'd be lit. That'd be west of the Mississippi. I mean, that's way the fuck west of the Mississippi. So is Tokyo. I mean, that's my number one destination, Tokyo. I got to get to Tokyo sometime. But baby steps. We'll go to Las Vegas first, then we'll go to Tokyo. Well, actually, no. We'll go to Las Vegas first, then Hawaii, then Tokyo. Right? A little better progression. But yeah, ultimate goal is Tokyo. Love to go to Tokyo. Still, people ask me, like, why do you want to go to Tokyo? It's like, dude, why do you not? Why is that not on your bucket list? I mean, Tokyo is like one of the coolest places ever, in my opinion. It's so fucking cool. Yeah, it beats Sydney, Australia. Like, I don't know. A lot of people want to go to Sydney, Australia. I mean, the only reason why I want to go to Sydney, Australia is... Actually, I don't even know. Is this near Sydney, Australia? I want to go to the Great Barrier Reef. Like I said, I'm not good with geography, but I think Sydney is actually south. A little bit south of the Great Barrier Reef. But you could probably get there taking a boat from Sydney. But anyways, that's the only thing I want to see. You know, like the Opera House. I can look at a picture, dog. I don't need to be there because I'm not going to see an opera. So why do I give a shit about the building? You know what I'm saying? Anyways, Tokyo is my number one goal. But yeah, I can't wait to go west of the Mississippi. It's gonna be crazy. First time, Las Vegas. Hopefully we go. But yeah, I mean that'll be another travel destination this year. I mean, I've traveled twice this year already. Once to South Florida. No. I've traveled 3 times. Twice to South Bend, once to South Florida. Damn, that's a lot of traveling. I'm probably traveling sometime soon. I don't know. I don't even realize it. I mean, except for Las Vegas. I'm talking about something other than Las Vegas. But yeah, I think that might be it. I travel too much, but not a lot. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Lion on Main. Whatever you guys are listening to this on, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and leave a review. All that shit really helps me out a lot. Follow my main channel, Jay Lyons. About to post a video there. Should be going up Friday, I believe. So be on the lookout for that. Click that notification bell so you get notified when it drops. And follow me on social media at RealJLyons and at Lion on Main on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And I think that's it. Wow. We're done. 63. Done. We're not done with the podcast. We're done with this episode. So don't freak out. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Love you. I don't know. Do I?